Letters from the Lighthouse. In the quiet seaside town of Weatherford, perched high upon a cliff that overlooked the endless stretch of the Atlantic Ocean, stood an old lighthouse. It had long since stopped guiding ships, but for Alara Bennett, it remained a symbol of everything she held dear. Every summer since she was a child, Alara returned to her grandfather's cottage, just a short walk from the lighthouse. It was her place of peace, until the summer she met Nathaniel Carter. Nathaniel was a writer, escaping the bustle of London for inspiration. He rented the old caretaker's house beside the lighthouse, hoping the sea breeze and solitude would help cure his writer's block. He hadn't expected to find it in Alara. They first met on a foggy morning in June. Alara was sketching the lighthouse from her usual spot under a weathered pine when Nathaniel strolled by with a notebook and a cup of coffee. He paused, intrigued by the soft concentration on her face and the graceful strokes of her pencil. "Is it always this misty?" he asked, breaking the silence. She looked up, startled but not annoyed. "Only when the sea wants to keep her secrets." He smiled. "And what about you? Do you keep any?" Alara tilted her head, considering. "Only the ones I draw." That became the beginning of something neither of them expected. They started meeting more often, sometimes by chance, sometimes by choice. They talked about books, art, dreams, and fears. Alara showed Nathaniel her sketchbooks filled with lighthouses and stars, and he read her unfinished chapters of a novel about lost sailors and waiting hearts. As July turned to August, their connection deepened. Alara found herself waiting each day for the sound of his footsteps or the sight of his silhouette against the ocean backdrop. Nathaniel, too, discovered that his writer's block had vanished. Each day with Alara gave him words. Beautiful, aching, honest words. But the summer was fleeting. Nathaniel had commitments in London. His publisher awaited the finished manuscript, and Alara had a life in the city too, teaching art and taking care of her ailing mother. They sat beneath the lighthouse on their final evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in oranges and purples. "I wish this summer didn't have to end," Nathaniel whispered. "It doesn't," Alara replied, pressing a folded piece of paper into his hand. "Write to me." He opened it and read the first few lines of a letter she had written him, poetic, heartfelt, filled with the tender promise of a love that could survive distance. They parted with a kiss as soft as the sea breeze. For months, they exchanged letters, long, handwritten pages filled with memories, laughter, and longing. Each envelope carried their growing love, until one winter night, a letter arrived for Alara with 6 simple words: "I'm coming back to you. Forever." Nathaniel returned to Weatherford in the spring. This time, not for inspiration, but for a future. They married under the lighthouse where it all began, surrounded by wildflowers and the sound of waves crashing below. And every evening, as the sun dipped beneath the sea, Alara would sketch, and Nathaniel would write. Still trading letters, still in love, as if summer had never ended. Whispers of the Old Bookshop. In the heart of Edinburgh, nestled between cobblestone alleys and ivy-covered buildings, stood an old bookshop named Whispers and Wonders. It wasn't grand or flashy, just a quiet, dusty place that smelled like parchment and stories. The kind of place people passed by without noticing. But for Emma, it was her sanctuary. Emma was a quiet soul, a literature student at the university nearby. Every afternoon after classes, she'd come to the shop to read, study, or sometimes just escape. She had a favorite corner by the window where the afternoon sun would pour in, lighting up her pages and warming her hands. One rainy November evening, as the wind howled outside, the little bell above the door rang. Emma glanced up from her book to see a young man step in, shaking the rain from his coat. He had tousled brown hair, tired eyes, and a slightly awkward smile. "Is it always this cold here?" he joked, rubbing his hands. Emma smiled politely, then went back to her book. But over the next few minutes, she kept stealing glances. There was something about him, something gentle in his presence. He approached the counter, speaking with the old shopkeeper, Mr. Wallace. Emma overheard fragments: traveler, artist, staying for the winter. His name was Aidan. The next day, he was there again. And the next. Sometimes he painted quietly by the fireplace. Other times, he wandered through the aisles, muttering poems to himself. Slowly, Emma and Aidan began to talk. First about books. Then about art. Then about fears, dreams, and heartbreaks. I came to Edinburgh to find inspiration, Aidan confessed one evening. But I think I found something better. Emma blushed, pretending not to understand. But she felt it too, the pull, the electricity in the silence between their words. Winter deepened. Snow fell in thick, soft blankets. The city seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Inside the bookshop, time slowed. They spent hours together, reading, laughing, and sharing secrets. On Christmas Eve, when the world outside was still and silent, Aidan reached across the table and took her hand. Emma, he said gently, in a city full of stories, you can come mine. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but of something deeper. Of knowing that in the quiet corners of the world, love can grow unnoticed, quietly, patiently. They kissed for the first time among the books, with the scent of winter and ink around them. But like all stories, theirs had a turning point. In March, Aidan received news from home. His father was sick, and he needed to return to the States. The day he left, Emma stood at the train station, her fingers intertwined with his. Will you come back? She asked, her voice trembling. I don't want to leave, he whispered. But all right. Every week. Until I'm back. And he did. Every week for 2 years, a letter came to Whispers and Wonders. And every week, Emma replied. Then one spring morning, as cherry blossoms bloomed and the city stirred with new life, the bell above the door rang. Emma looked up. There he was, rain-soaked, breathless, and smiling. I found my way back to you, he said. She ran into his arms, laughing and crying all at once. They eventually bought the bookshop from old Mr. Wallace and turned it into a cafe library, a haven for dreamers and lovers. And on the back of every receipt, they printed a line from Aidan's first letter. Some stories are written in ink. Ours was written in silence, glances, and the sound of turning pages.